Well, hey, first off, thank you for joining. I've seen you around everywhere. A little wild week, to say the least. How would you rank this in weeks of being around the team through all the years you've covered? Because this is a unique situation that in my lifetime I really haven't experienced it to this extent.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I've been covering the team since 2011, and I don't remember as sort of crazy of a time. Now, there's been some years, obviously, I think we all remember the Ray Rice year where, for all the wrong reasons, that one was kind of crazy to cover and very difficult to cover. But in terms of like any coaching stuff and general manager stuff, I tell people all the time, like I've been covering the team since 2011. I've covered two general managers, and that was as peaceful of transfer as power as any general manager move in the history of sports, with Eric DeCosta, taking the reins from Ozzie Newsome, and only one head coach. So that's pretty amazing in this day and age of sports and changes and all that. So yeah, it was. I think we knew it was going to be one of those off seasons either way. You have the Lamar contract stuff and all the drama involving that. There's a lot of free agents. There's probably going to be very active on that front. Whether Harbaugh returned or not, there was going to be coaching changes. So there's just going to be a lot. But, man, the right out of the box that Tuesday afternoon with the Harbaugh news, it certainly set the tone for what's going to be a wacky, wild offseason.
Yeah, wacky is an understatement, I think. I think the chaos that went about it on Tuesday, we were live on the show when it happened, and then I'm thinking to myself, Jeff, I'm like, shit, we have Charlie Kohler joining us after, and I felt bad because Charlie came on. He's like, I want to preface this. I didn't come on here to talk about John Harbaugh being fired. It's just how it turned out. And you could see on his face when we talked to him, and even as people in this community, you were trying to process this because you knew that changes probably needed to happen to some extent, maybe not to that, but also processing that one of the most heartbreaking losses in Ravens history, I'll put it up there for heartbreakers, in Pittsburgh to go to the playoffs. If you're not going to say it's your top 5, it's got to be in a top 10 moment in Ravens history of heartbreak. But on top of it, now it's all this reporting going about around the scene too. We had Todd Monken last week. I know you spent a lot of time around Todd, and I've heard a lot about Todd. I didn't think Todd would necessarily be so explicit, but he was. And this whole situation to me has been very intriguing because people are trying to piece things together. And then I saw that you and Diana Rossini were talking about the way of which this all went down with Harbaugh being fired by phone calls. Am I not mistaken? Do you mind just telling me a little bit more about what you know of this situation that's kind of unfolded here, really over the last 72 hours?
Yeah, sure. I was the same way. Tuesday morning, everything I heard was he was likely coming back. And that created, I knew the decision wasn't made. I knew there was still some things that had to just be discussed. But as of Tuesday morning, all things were leaning towards the direction that he was coming back. So what changed? I mean, that was the idea. That's what we were all trying to figure out. Again, I don't know that they were ever 100% he was coming back. I still think there was a decision to be made. What had happened was Monday morning, John Harbaugh had met with team president Sashi Brown, general manager Eric DeCosta, and executive vice president Newsome. And they had talked about the future, the plan. There were no assurances made to Harbaugh, but he talked about how he sees things going forward, some of the potential coaching changes he was feeling were necessary and he was planning to make. And then, obviously those three men talked to Steve Bisciotti later in the afternoon about the whole situation. And when everyone went to bed that Monday night, I think people mostly thought Harbaugh would be back as the head coach. But Bisciotti met with a bunch of players on that Tuesday. Harbaugh was in the office. He was talking to coaches about the plans going forward, the offseason. I think he knew there was no assurances he was going to be back, but the sense around the team was it was headed that way. but Bisciotti talked to several players about the situation. One even went over his house to kind of have a meeting about the team. And by mid-afternoon, the whole tenor of the situation had changed. Things were headed in the opposite direction. And I think Harbaugh had a feel for that. And then when Harbaugh was on his way home from the team facility I think it was around 4:00, Steve Bisciotti called him, let him know that he was being relieved as the head coach of the Ravens. And, there's a lot of emotion there. So obviously there's things both men, I think, wanted to say to each other, Ryan, that they really never got a chance to say. So Bisciotti called Harbaugh again on Thursday, and they talked for about 40 minutes to talk about why he made the move, what happened. So these two men are going to be good friends going forward. I mean, I'm sure there's always none of this, 18 years, this was always going to be a difficult parting, like there's no way to do it cleanly without feelings being hurt. But yeah. I think going forward, these are two men who have a lot of respect for each other, who both probably recognize that a change was needed.
I mean, definitely something that needed to give. I think of this whole thing, Jeff, there's been a lot of, speculation around why did this happen? Yeah. How did it happen? I think that's part of the reason Todd wanted to come on to talk with us, because he felt that there was reports coming out with him that he felt weren't true, so on a part about Lamar, he was going, look, my relationship with Lamar was fine. And, could it have been better? Sure. But that wasn't a main part of that. And the reason why, too, on all of our posts, then I'm assuming they're associated with Lamar's group, but we have a Lamar Entertainment that keeps posting on all of it saying truth starts to come out now. And I think a lot of people, Jeff, are just trying to piece together an 18-year relationship between Bisciotti and Harbaugh and a friendship being done over a phone call. And I do agree, though, that if this is your buddy, and it's a hard thing, whether it's your best friend or not, to go, hey, let me call you in and tell you I'm going to fire you, or I'm going to call you on the phone and I'm going to fire you. But you know what I mean, Jeff? There's a lot of, more than ever, there's a lot of people that feel conflicted about all of this because, one, the Ravens haven't dealt with this much drama in-house in such a long time. And people are just trying to piece together what to really believe. Yeah. And I hate even saying that, but I think that is part of the situation right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my family is season ticket holders for the Giants. So I have back home, I'm from New Jersey. I grew up a huge Giant fan. So I have all these people calling me and saying, oh, what are we getting with John Harbaugh? And how did this go wrong? And the easiest way to say it is I look at three things, right? One was the on-field stuff. The game management hangups were happening too often. And by game management, I mean, maybe not getting Derrick Henry the ball at the wrong times and some of the late game collapses from game management, the blown leads. That's the kind of on-field stuff that I think we're becoming a blemish on John's resume here. Two, I think the locker room dynamic. Now, I've talked to I've talked to a good number of players and they were mixed, but I've still yet to talk to a player that said he completely lost the locker room. And I don't think you completely lose the locker room and yet you go out in Green Bay in that weather and beat their you-know-what to keep your playoff hopes alive. This was a Ravens team that was making mistakes and may have not been playing their best. But I didn't see any evidence of any white flag waving, any business decisions. This team was still playing hard to the end. And I think all the people I talked to, in fact, I even had a player reach out to me because he thought it was BS that it was out there that he lost the locker room, because he said I think players understand why it had to happen, but I don't think John Harbaugh lost the locker room completely. Now, there were some guys that probably were ready for a new change, but I think that's for every team in every sport. Not everyone's like the coach. So the whole locker room, I think this was a difficult year, and I think that was part two of it. That was the second. And that coincides with Steve Bisciotti talking to a group of players about it. And I think there was a sense there that there was more grumbling. There's more division than usual in the John Harbaugh locker room. So that was the second thing. The third thing is the Lamar Jackson aspect. Now, it's going to come, there's going to be things that come out about that, relationships. They didn't see eye to eye and everything. And I think some of that's magnified by the fact that they were losing. They were a popular Super Bowl pick, and they were 1-5 at one point. I don't think it was necessarily done as a factor because of their relationship necessarily. Like, yeah, this year was a strain. I think this year was a strain on Harbaugh and Lamar about the practicing. Will he not practice? The frustration. But I also would say nobody did more promoting, defending, and just taking up for Lamar Jackson than John Harbaugh. And that's what a lot of players mention here. But I think in general, they probably felt Lamar needed a restart. He needed a new coach, a new voice in his ear, a new motivator for him, a new partner in all this. He's the face of the franchise. Like, he's a superstar, and he's going to be a big part of this, and they need to get a head coach to make sure they're together, they're moving in the same direction, they're getting along well. And it just feels like stale is a popular word, Ryan, but it just feels like that relationship had gotten a little stale, and both sides could benefit from, kind of new partnership.
I mean, look, in a sports setting, for those that don't know or aren't covering the team, Jeff, or being around it, for me growing up in it, it's not, sunshines and rainbows and this camaraderie of, it is when you win. You look at Ben Johnson and the Bears are winning and they're humming, and you're like, hell yeah, this is what it's supposed to be in a locker room, but it's really not. That's you're on cloud nine. That's everything going the way that you hoped. And only few teams have that exact moment throughout the entire process. But a lot of the parts are not everyone's going to love every coach that you have. I'll be honest, I didn't love every coach that I had. Doesn't mean that I didn't like them or respect them, and I think that's a big part to this whole conversation. I know we got to let you go here in a second here, Jeff, but Brad, you have a quick question?
Yeah, just one clarifying question, Jeff, and that I was trying to piece together the story that you were telling, and I just want to make sure that I'm hearing this right. So to your understanding, it's that John Harbaugh actually never met with Steve Bisciotti, and that he spoke with everyone else, and then they went to Bisciotti with that message. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good clarification. I don't get any sense that John Harbaugh and Steve Bisciotti had any in-depth conversations after the loss in Pittsburgh. And now, could they have sent a few texts to each other? That's, John texts with a lot of people. But I think what's interesting is John really never got a chance with the owner, in the owner's presence. And he was in town too. He just wasn't in the building. I don't think he got any chance to kind of state his case for the job. And I think that'll certainly be something owner Steve Bisciotti will be asked about Tuesday. The manner of which this went down, why not face-to-face? Why not, sit down in on those meetings with John Harbaugh and like get his take? And it'll be interesting to see why he says why that didn't go on. It's not a criticism for me about why it didn't happen. It is just curious, considering they've been so close and they've had such a partnership over the years, that why he didn't sit down with them and kind of discuss the direction of things going forward.
I think that is the shocking part to all of it, right? It's the exact thing. Not that it's unprecedented to fire someone on the phone, but given the long track record of how the Ravens have been and how that friendship has been, that maybe it's saying, hey, it's easy to rip the Band-Aid off, but even if you have that understanding and said, hey, we're moving on, it still does seem strange after 18 years. And I know Steve and John are really close. When you sit there and go, damn, that hurts hearing that. That's the way it went down. Now I think it's going to lean to greener pastures for John Harbaugh. Hoping it leans to greener pastures for the Ravens. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you, Jeff, on what the timeline is for a coach, because it seems like the Ravens are interviewing every damn person available on the market. And I think we can be quick on that. Fair to say the Ravens are going to do their homework. And I'd be surprised if this process is prolonged here, because they want to make sure they get it right.
Yeah, I think the timeline they're generally operating under is 2 to 3 weeks. And really Wednesday will be the 1 week mark because, they fired him Tuesday afternoon. They really didn't get hop in on the head coaching stuff till Wednesday. So we're not even at the 1 week mark. They've interviewed 7, I believe they're up to. I would expect 7 or 8 more to be interviewed by the end of this week. And then I think they'll start bringing people in person, like the finalists, to come to the Under Armour Performance Center to start talking about, to really hone in on things and do the most thorough interview and then make a decision off that. So I would be surprised if this is done before the, 2.5 week mark. All
right. 2.5 weeks. We'll see how it wraps up there. Jeff, it's just a wild time in football right now. There's a great playoffs, and it reminds you that the Ravens, if they were in the dance, it feels so wide open in the AFC. I know Houston looks good, but I have a weird feeling, Jeff, that Buffalo might go on a run. But the point being is, you're sitting there going, "Damn, this could have been a great opportunity." But some great games. Actually talking. I don't know if you saw the whole thing with Miss Lynn Jones down in Jacksonville. We're talking with her later on about that whole situation with Liam Cohen, and that got a lot of publicity. There's a lot to talk about today, overall. So, we'll see. Yeah.
When you talk about the most devastating losses with the Ravens, and I agree with you, it's got to be in the top 10. The only reason I may not put in the top 5 is because I never got the sense that this team was going to make a run. There was just too much inconsistency week in and week out. However, in saying that, we've all seen instances where something clicks for a team and a team gets hot. And I think we all know they had those elements where they could have gotten hot. And you watch these other teams in the AFC, and they have their strengths, but no one really scares you. So in saying that, look, it didn't hurt as much because, you didn't feel like this team had what it takes to go the Super Bowl anyway. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I would also say, well, who knows? All these teams are flawed that we're watching play on the weekend. There's no team that absolutely scares you. The Bills have the best player, but do they have the best team that's still playing? And it'll be interesting. I mean, it was an awesome weekend of playoffs. The game last night was kind of boring. I was a little disappointed in that one.
Hey, the Panthers almost took out the Rams.
I know. And the Rams have not been playing well at all for several weeks now. So, the 49ers are losing guys every week and they're still alive. So it's fascinating. I wouldn't even know who to label a favorite at this point.
I don't even know either. And now there's all reports about that. The reason why George Kittle hurt his Achilles is maybe because of the practice facility that they're training at. I mean, things are getting crazy, Jeff.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, for those that don't know where they can find you, all of your work you do for The Athletic, just let everyone, I mean, honestly, Jeff, not to give you your cards. I think everyone knows who you are. They're like, yeah, if I'm only believing it if Jeff says it. So just talk for a second where people can find you for further information and everything going on with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I'm at theathletic.com and at Jeff Zrebiec, the X account. We'll be busy, man. I mean, look, people are excited to hear what Steve Bisciotti has to say Tuesday. We haven't heard him in a press conference setting in many years, to be honest. So I think there'll be a lot of tweets coming out of if they still call them tweets, coming out of my account tomorrow. I'll obviously be writing, off that news conference tomorrow. But, this is just the start of it. There's going to be a new coach in a couple of weeks. There's going to be a new staff. Then we're going to have the Lamar stuff. So it's going to be a busy off season. So I'll be writing plenty.
Yeah, you'll be staying busy. Whether you like it or not, Jeff, you're going to be staying busy. So, hey, we appreciate your time today. I look forward to when we talk next. And, enjoy what tomorrow brings. I'm definitely going to be curious, and I'll be checking out your work to follow up.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff Zrebiec, everybody.